Morning, guys. Happy Wednesday. I hope everyone is blessed. It is the 29th of July, and this is your daily market outlook for today. Before we get into any charts, I just want to make sure that you guys know that the content on this YouTube channel or with anything that I do is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, and nothing shared in my videos or course should be considered financial, investment, or trading advice. Trading and investing involves risk, and you should always conduct your own research before making any financial decisions. Understand as well that any past performances discussed does not guarantee future results, and you are responsible, as always, for your own financial decisions. So today, Wednesday the 29th, we have Fed fund rates, FOMC, at 7 p.m. So again, it is probably most likely going to be a slower day until later this evening. And then obviously we will have probably a lot of impact inside of the markets with the US dollar. So again, just be very, very careful, very, very aware of the fact that we have this news event at 7 p.m. If you're in trades beforehand, again, don't focus on making money, focus on protecting capital. That's how you become the best trader you could possibly be. So please focus on protecting your capital when we have FOMC, NFP, big news events, obviously like today. So, like I said, 7 p.m. That is what we're all 7 p.m. and half seven, sorry. But 7 p.m. onwards, that's what we've got to keep an eye on. The press conference for the FOMC is at 7:30 as well. So yeah, let's see. So I do travel back to Spain today. So when FOMC is happening, I will be in the air. So again, I won't be obviously aware until I land. But let's obviously look at what we think could happen in regards to the markets. Now, looking at the dollar from a daily, we can pretty much see that obviously we're still not obviously tapped into this demand, as we've talked about. And we've had obviously this structure internally be extremely bullish. So this is what we've got to focus on. Yes, we're inside this supply, but we've been in that supply once, twice, and then obviously we've consolidated again. If, for instance, FOMC does push this down, then I would want to see if we do obviously slow down in this area from FOMC, what happens. Then obviously we can make a decision from there, or FOMC could just literally go and break these highs, and then we can obviously capitalize on the structure carrying on bullish. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But as we have discussed, this daily demand we've called out perfectly, and this daily demand we've called out perfectly as well. So, props to us. And we can see what is going on with inside of the four. Now, 4 hour, you can see that we are bullish. We are bullish. Yes, we're in this 4 hour supply that didn't get mitigated, but we are bullish with the 4 hour. So as I mentioned yesterday, in order for us to, look for sells from a 4 hour perspective, we would need to break this low. Of course, 1 hour is going to be different. But from a 4 hour, we would need to see this 4 hour change of trend from here. And then basically that would confirm that the 4 hour has gone from bullish to bearish, and that's when you can try and look for the shorts. But as of right now, we don't need to focus on that just yet. So nothing is really changed as much as obviously yesterday, sorry. We still have this 4 hour demand area that hasn't been mitigated, you can see. We haven't quite obviously come into that area just yet. We still got this imbalance above that as well. So that would still be my priority for obviously the dollar. Again, I think I say it all the time, and I think I said it yesterday. I just want you to start focusing, guys, especially you guys that do my course. Start focusing on when we have the expansion and when the market moves up and we have a demand area. I want you to start just noticing what is going on before we reach that demand area. How many times does this tend to happen where this is where most people make the mistakes? You can see it over and over and over again. It's market manipulation where market is, a 1 hour 1 hour structure, 1 hour trading, and that's where most people make the mistakes. You can see it consolidates before we get a true move away. Consolidates makes people have make decisions, little fake outs, and then it comes back. and then same again and again and again and again and again. So I want you to start focusing on what happens because if you look at this scenario before we get the market to come into that demand, for me, I'm looking at this and I'm going, this is potentially just a rinse and repeat. People trying to get in longs up from here or even shorts, and then market could obviously just start to make its way down here, taking out any early buyers or sellers, and then getting that true move away potentially, from here. Obviously not in one candle, but you guys will get the gist of what I am saying. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense in regards to the dollar, and it's going to be pretty much the same for majority of the pairs, if I'm being honest. Just quickly on that, of course, we are in this 1 hour supply. And if you look at the one, yes, we obviously had this 1 hour, break, and I can understand why some people potentially would have been looking, for shorts on this 1 hour supply here. We had this 1 hour change, 1 hour structure you can see, and then this big move away. Now we come back up, filled in that imbalance, tapped into that supply, and now moved away. So I can understand why people obviously were shorting from there. It's just more of a higher, not as much as a higher probability setup, if that makes sense. Because if you look at this now, let me just have a look from this low to this high. When market retraced, we come to a minimum of the 50%. Now, what I teach in my course, as you guys know who do the course, obviously when we get into that, what's it called, that 50% or lower, you're inside that discounted area. And when you get into that discounted area, that is a valid area for market just to go and carry on. Yes, we want to see deeper retracements, but it could just carry on from here. So just making sure that you guys are aware of that. And hopefully you guys who are my students will understand what I'm trying to say there. But going into Euro USD, what can we see? If I just look at the daily, again, nothing has changed. We're inside that daily supply. Still, we've been in there for 4 days, 4 days now. So, let's hope that FOMC does, obviously give us some market volume. So looking at the 4 hour, what can we see? Well, we can see the fact that we've had this 4 hour, trend, and realistically, the 4 hour supply has been beautiful. You can see every single time it has been absolutely beautiful, and the same scenario of what we've just been talking about. Before the market obviously makes a move, what happens? You can see market just messes around all the time, making people obviously make mistakes. You can see the consolidating, the buyers and the sells and the buyers and the sells, and then it comes up, manipulates, take out the highs, and then gets that true move away. Look at that Picasso drawing. So it is the same scenario. You can see market tricking people, creating liquidity, going back down, people now back looking to sell, market manipulation, takes out anyone that's, got the stop losses and etc. And then we get the expansion. It is rinse and repeat with this strategy. So I'm looking at this scenario right now, and obviously we've filled in that imbalance. We've had, a strong move into that, supply. I'm still expecting this supply to stick, and I'm still expecting this supply to hold because if we expect the dollar to carry on bullish, then of course we expect EU to carry on shorting. Now, the only difference is in order for the dollar to get down here, that would mean that the dollar, if the dollar does, and that's a big word, if the dollar gets lower into this demand, then we would expect, of course, EU to start longing, and that's where it could be longing from here, and that's where again it might just come and take this high. You just got to be very aware, and if the dollar does short, it's not my most favorable. It is in this little 1 hour. I can imagine if it just dropped down this little 1 hour area here. Now, is that something that I'd look for? No, it's not, personally. But I would prefer if the market wasn't where it's at right now because of where the dollar is, unless the dollar just carries on bullish. Hopefully this makes sense, and hopefully you're trying to get what I'm trying to say because that is quite a bit of distance to get to this demand area if the dollar's going to short before longing. But yeah, I think what you can wait for is when or and if we break this low, you could then potentially look to see if, let's say, a British low, then looking at market to carry on. And obviously that's where you can try and look for some better shorting ideas. Definitely we break this low, especially with the candle closure as well. Going into Great British Pound US dollar, let's have a look at the daily time frame just quickly. So again, nothing's changed. You can see yesterday's candle was very consolidated. We are trapped between this supply and demand at this moment in time. Um, Again, what am I going to focus on? You're probably asking, well, same here. What is this movement here? Yes, we're in this big structure, but what is this movement going on here? It is being extremely shorting. So that is my priority, unless, as I just deleted, unless we break this high. And then if we break this daily high, then I know that this demand is in control, and that's where I'm aiming for, potential longs, or, for a longer period of time. So obviously keep an eye on this daily supply. Let's have a look at what the 4 hour is telling us. So no, nothing's really changed. Yesterday we just consolidated all day inside of this 4 hour demand area. We've actually been in essence Monday. So Monday and all of Tuesday, we've been inside of this demand area and consolidated. So personally, this lines more up with what the dollar is doing. If you look at the dollar and you look at GU, and obviously if we expect the dollar to do what I want it to do, then I would basically expect GU to potentially come into this supply and then get that move away from this supply. Build up liquidity right now, just as it does here, just as it does here, just as it does every other time, and then get that shorting away from this supply. So that is basically what I'm going to keep an eye on for the Great British Pound US dollar. If we obviously do carry on longing, or if you guys want to potentially look for the longs inside of here, you can see that we've come into this area of demand this morning during Asian, and we've obviously had that bullishness away. We've took out this Asian low, as you can see, manipulation, broke this high, imbalance below that, beautiful 1 hour trade. And again, if this carries on, it would be an absolute beauty of a trade for sure. So yeah, let's see obviously what happens with GU. If this carries on long in, obviously that means that we would need to see the dollar carry on shorting into this demand area. Pretty simple to understand, hopefully, for you guys. NZUSD, let's see what she is doing. So from this supply, everything's been working out perfectly so far. Before we do jump into the daily, I'll just have a look at the sorry, the before we jump into daily, let's have a look at what's going on. What we obviously discussed is the fact that we are in this demand, and we're also still in this supply. Yes, we manipulated and took out the high, but this is still valid. We've had no candle closure above this supply area, and then we had this move away, and then we discussed the fact that market has basically consolidated in this demand, and then this candle basically filled in the imbalance that was left. That's why I put this line here for the start of the imbalance. And then it's started to move away slowly. So daily is, I'm not gonna lie, disgusting. It is an ugly thing to look at right now. So it isn't the best, but if we go down to the 4, can we see anything that's a little bit different? Obviously, one thing that we can focus on is the fact that we can focus on this internal structure here. And that does align with the fact that the dollar's internal structure is bullish. So with NZUSD, we obviously talked yesterday about the fact that we have this supply area. Now we've had a reaction from this supply area, nothing significant. Of course, we've created equal lows. So, I do eventually hope and I do eventually think that we should take out these lows, fill in the rest of this imbalance, potentially come into this demand. Not saying that we're going to long from this demand long term, but I want to see us get into this demand. Now, my main thought is, and hopefully some of you guys think this, is the dollar's not in this demand area just yet. Pardon me, the dollar's not in this demand area just yet. NZ is obviously reactive on this supply. So there's two scenarios for me. If the dollar's, let's say the dollar gets into that demand and it carries on shorting, we expect longs from NZUSD. Hopefully this makes sense. If the dollar is going to come into here, then obviously NU should push up. If it pushes up, then I wouldn't even be surprised if we come into this supply area because this supply area or even this supply area is unmitigated. We haven't touched these supply areas. So, market, if the dollar goes short before going long, it could manipulate this high. It could come into either one of these supplies and then get that move away from there. So I'm just aware of that as well, and hopefully you guys can understand what I am trying to get at. I'm just trying to think of scenarios in which could happen because of the situation with the dollar and what it's done. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. AUDSD, absolutely beautiful, beautiful move from the supply area that we discussed yesterday. Hopefully you guys, can see that yesterday, and hopefully some of you guys managed to get into this trade as well. If we look at the daily just quickly, we've reached this daily demand area. So the supply is in control. As you guys can currently see, we had supply area here, market consolidate, started to move away. We talked about this daily supply area, which has stuck, and now we've had this move away also. So for me, yes, we've reached this daily demand area. Does that align with the dollar? Well, we're in this daily supply. And of course, if the daily goes short from this supply for the long term, yes, AUD, you would go long from here from the long term as well. But we don't focus on that just yet right now. We've got to focus on what is the 4 hour, the 4 hour telling us at this moment in time. And what the 4 hour is telling us at this moment in time is you can see from the consolidation to the short where we broke this low, where this low taps into this demand, but fails to go and break a new higher high. And then we got this move down, change of trend. Where did we come back into? This 4 hour supply. And then we got that move away. This supply area was what I discussed and give out yesterday on the daily market outlook. And as you guys can see, absolute beauty of a trade. And yeah, spot on. Looking at today, I'm looking at the fact that we do have, this last candle as my 4 hour supply, this last buy up before the sell down. Yes, you can start to refine it to like this if you want, or you can start to refine it to like this, start this imbalance. But I'm just going to focus on that last buy up candle before the move down. And what I'm expecting, or what I would expect, is basically market to just come into this supply, get that change of trend, and then carry on shorting from here. That's ideally what I would look for with AUD USD. Just a rinse and repeat of these areas, hopefully. Looking at where the market is at here, of course, I would like to see it come into this demand. So deeper into that demand, would be better. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, to see what happens with FOMC. Is it going to push up? Is it going to push down? What is it going to do? It's going to be interesting to see that. But again, from a technical standpoint, you can see why I'm looking at this 4 hour supply. But ideally, what I want to see is I want to see some liquidity built up. I want to see some fake outs and then potentially get that manipulation to happen. Same here, same in this little bit here. I want to see that manipulation, that build up of liquidity, help people make not help, but let people make the mistakes, getting in early sellers, early sells, so on and so on and so on. USD CAD, not much movement, being honest. Daily time frame as let's move this. Daily time frame has obviously reached this daily supply. So we've slowed down a hell of a lot. What's going to happen? I'm not too sure just yet. Of course, again, we did reach into this demand, but we have been consolidating in this area a little bit for, well, a good couple of days now, a good few days. Again, it does align pretty similar, sorry, to the dollar. But let's discuss and let's see what we can potentially look for. If we look at the 4, you guys can probably agree that the 4 hour is bullish. It's not the cleanest. It is pretty ugly. I'm going to remove this right now. We do have this supply area up here. So yeah, the only thing that I'm looking at with the dollar, with the USD CAD, is the fact that we came into this demand, we had a reaction, we came back into this demand, and we're still in here right now. But the dollar isn't in this demand area, so that worries me slightly because if the dollar shorts, USD CAD should start shorting as well. So that means that we could just wipe out all of this. So I am just being very, very aware of that. Now, of course, if the dollar carries on bullish, and let's say that we get a break of this high, and it'll be more of a 1 hour break, I'll just quickly show you this high. Let me just line that up. Then I would be more happier to look for, the long. So let's say market just carries on and we break this, because if you look at the internal, it's still bearish at this moment in time. But if we break this, then I'll be more happy to look for them longs. So I'm just being very, very aware of that at this moment in time. Of course, if the dollar shorts into the lower halves and USD CAD shorts, but it doesn't get as much volume, then it would be, let's say the best scenario for me is, let's say it came into this 1 hour demand, potentially, if the dollar does short, that would be the best scenario, is market doesn't give a load of volume for USD CAD, but it makes its way down into here, and then we get that move away. Because we do have some imbalance that we could come and fill. So yeah, I'm just thinking in scenarios. I'm thinking in predictions, of course. But let's see what happens with USD CAD. USD CHF a lot more like the US dollar. If you look at the daily time frame, obviously it's in no man's land. It's been extremely bullish. So not much to discuss with that. But if you look at the four, you can see that the 4 hour is obviously been beautiful. And it aligns up pretty similar to the US dollar. If we look at the US dollar, we have this demand, as I said, the imbalance still. And then we look at USD CHF, it's the same scenario. You have the imbalance that's above this demand area. Um, I'm just thinking, as you guys probably can see, is this scenario of market just messing around, doing up and down and faking out? Is this scenario the same as what we want to see here? What happens here before the manipulation into demand and then the move away? Um, that's what I am, thinking about, because even though they're small, it still happens slightly. It happens here. That's more 1 hour. Obviously, it's a little bit less, but it does happen over and over and over again before the true move happens. You can see market just messes around. So, let's have a look at what we can obviously see from this, and it is pretty simple. Like, I'm expecting, as you guys can probably already tell, market to just potentially dip in and then go and carry on from here. Take out the lows, fill in this imbalance, and then tap into that 4 hour demand area. Um, Again, we've got 3 hours left on this candle. Unless this candle, just gives us some sort of large body like this, then of course it would be a different scenario, and we would potentially look for, a different scenario of market carrying on from a demand area inside of here. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. USD Japanese yen. Let's see what is going on. Let's remove all of this noise. No, we'll keep that. Oh. So we come lower than that so we can get rid. We have this demand area consolidation here. So we do have this demand. The daily, just quickly, we haven't tapped into that demand yet. Market has obviously dropped quite a lot. We've took out this low. But again, I would like to see this demand area met. If you look at the 4 hour, we can pretty much see that the supply area that I talked about held yesterday, we wicked above it, but we had no body closure. And obviously that's where market has moved away from. So again, another beautiful trade idea. Obviously it was a very small supply area, but a beautiful trade idea. The supply stuck, even though we took out the highs, and then obviously went short. Now looking at this, I would like to see if the dollar carries on longing, long term from this demand. If then I would like to see market come into this 4 hour demand area. So yeah, I've not got much for USD Japanese yen, truthfully, at this moment in time. If, for instance, let's remove this now. Let's say the dollar starts shorting, which I don't know if it's going to, and then you can obviously look for a supply area inside of, here. But let's just like we've got FOMC today. And there's no point in giving, B setups or A setups. I want to be looking for them A plus setups. if that makes sense. So let's see what happens with this. Let's see what happens with the dollar. And then tomorrow we will have more of a clearer understanding of what we want to do and how we think the market is going to react. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But other than that, guys, I appreciate every single person as always. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. If anyone ever wants any more information on my mentorship and how I obviously or what I do, how I do it, feel free to obviously drop me a message on Instagram or just drop a a comment on the comment section below, and I will get back to you as fast as possible. Other than that, guys, take care and God bless.